right make public: 1, to the public through the press, radio or television, and 2, the inclusion in various publications, newspapers, magazines, books, work, and 3, the text printed in any publication. A. Terms and definitions defines publication as a document that was editing and publishing, study-made printing, embossing or otherwise, contains information intended for dissemination, and meets state standards and other regulatory documents of publishing design and printing performance. Science is publishing the results of theoretical and/or experimental studies, as well as trained scientists for publication of cultural artifacts, historical documents, and literary texts. It is designed for professionals and for research. First group of scientific publications include monograph, science book, publishing a full investigation of a problem or topic that belongs to one or more authors, abstracts, dissertations, preprint, abstracts and materials, conference, a cyclic collection of results of the conference, reports, recommendations and decisions. Scientific papers, proceedings of the studies carried out in research institutions, universities and scientific societies. The second group of sources of scientific publications are publications, documentary or scientific publication containing monuments and historical documents that were textological processing, with notes, introductory articles, support boards and other elements of scientific publications' health system. Masthead, a set of data describing the issue and intended for its design, bibliographic processing, statistical records and inform the reader. The elements of the initial information is information about the authors or others who participated in the creation of publication, title, name, edition, Zahalovny data, subtitle data, numbers. Output, storage code edition, code UDC, BBK index, author mark, design annotated, a catalog card, a sign of protection of copyright, international standard number ISBN, final data. Baseline data include location, registration, publication name, publisher or organization that owns the right of publication, and here, usually the lead in the bottom of the cover sheet. In the final data indicate the date of the original in preparation, date of the publication to print, paper size and proportion worksheet, type and number of the paper, the font of the text, printing. Publication volume and conventional printed sheets that are given to the format of the paper sheet 60 by 90 centimeters, the volume of publication and accounting and publishing worksheets. Order number, printing company, the name and complete mailing address of publisher and printing company. Journal, a magazine that contains articles and research materials of theoretical or applied nature, intended mainly for specialists in science. 5 purposeful scientific journals are divided into theoretical, scientific, practical and scientific methodology. Theses for the degree PhD accepted to protect the specialized academic councils only if the completeness and quality of the publication of major scientific results and conclusions of the thesis. The main results of each thesis is generally include those referred to as scientific novelty and conclusions, abstract. Official opponent on the basis of study and thesis papers. Applicant published on the thesis. The review highlights the following mandatory questions as the relevance of the chosen topic: the degree and validity of scientific statements, conclusions and recommendations made in the thesis, their authenticity and novelty, the completeness of their presentation in published works. The main papers. In particular, the current system suffers from a lack of quality and transparency of the peer review process, a lack of availability of evaluative information about papers to the public, and excessive cost incurred by a system in which private publishers are the administrators of peer review. These problems can all be addressed by Open Post-Publication Peer Review, OPR. Together with Open Access, OA, which is generally accepted as desirable, OPR will revolutionize scientific publishing. In order to enhance research results and coverage provisions of the thesis for a doctor's degree and PhD, of the unity of the requirements of SCC of Ukraine approved a number of requirements for publications to be strictly followed. Scientific publications, including scholarly books, journals or collections, which publish the main results of theses should be available to the reader located in the collections of major national libraries, must be sent from institutions listed approved HAC of Ukraine. Venadski National Library of Ukraine, National Parliamentary Library of Ukraine, State Scientific Technical Library of Ukraine, BC Stefanik Lviv State Scientific Library, Gorky Odessa State Scientific Library, VG Korolenko State Scientific Library, Book Chamber of Ukraine. Methods of construction and processing of research results. Tabular and graphical methods for the construction of socio-educational research. Statistical methods for processing the results of social and educational research. Forms of summarizing the results of social and educational research. Rules for a list of references. A. Methods of mixing and processing the results of social and educational research. Summary of experimental data obtained on the basis of the experiment is to systematize and setting qualitative and quantitative relationships between the factors studied. To process the results of studies often use statistical, tabular and graphical methods. Table and graphical methods for the construction of socio-educational research. For quantitative results of a study made it possible to detect the presence of some dependencies in the factors. They must somehow organize. Suited for this may be a statistical ranking and grouping methods. Ranking is the distribution of quantitative indicators in a specific order, for example, the degree of importance or significance or in sequence, or vice versa, reduction. Based on the rankings, exclude all minor and incidental details that do not affect the results of the study. Group division provides research data on the basis of certain indicators, performance group, into groups with similar or close to the values of elements. Performance grouping may be quantitative and qualitative. When grouping for quantitative traits, quantitative grouping are based on features that can be described quantitatively, e.g., test results or survey the rate, process, productivity, precision manufacturing products, and T.IN. Quantitative features can always be measured by some unit of measurement, and the measurement results organize a certain sequence, increase, decrease, periodic repetition, etc. When grouping by qualitative features, attributive group are based on features that cannot be described quantitatively, but they are repeated so that it becomes possible to determine, e.g., ethnic or social background of respondents. From the qualitative features impossible to create a sequence. The test data can be grouped into one or more attributes. The number of features distinguish simple and combined group. Simple grouping caused by one criterion, e.g., all participants of the experiment can be divided by length of service. Combined grouping particular data sets simultaneously performed based on multiple traits, when it is divided by length of service work is also divided by level of education that it will be grouped on. 2 grounds. Third group may be assigned of age groups. etc. Appropriate grouping is not more than 3 signs. Statistical research data arranged for ease of future use are entered in the tables. Tables make it possible to display quantitative features of the object concise, compact, and clearly systematized. Listed in the table data are easy to compare and analyze. The table can be not only a means of displaying collected during the experiment data and means of their interpretation. It is therefore important to know how to make a chart that its views should take. Each table consists of 2 parts, a text and numeric. To include the text of the header table or the necessary verbal explanation. In the digital part includes statistical numerical data, the number of tables. Informing the table depends on the successful of its construction. Choosing the right table structure helps to better reveal the essence of it contained in the data and relationships between them. The structure distinguished symbol group, combined, compiled, chess and some other tables. Chess tables, sampled to refer to the columns of the table are numbered. Graphical method of processing experimental data is to build dependencies between the factors, variables. Graphic dependence may take the form of graphs and charts. They make it possible to succinctly and clearly present the research results in specific and understandable form to explain the figures and the relationship between them. With well-constructed graphs or charts to display not only the specific data, but the patterns they represent. Graphic representations of research results is often built on the basis of rectangular coordinates. For plotting, apply uniform and irregular, functional, scale. Uniform scale is considered, for which the distance between 2 neighboring divisions does not change. In functional scale, distance between 2 neighboring divisions by changing certain mathematical law. An example of such a scale can be logarithmic. Apply uniform scale for a more vivid picture of certain dependencies. The construction schedule includes 3 stages. 1. Choice of scale and the construction of the grid. Taking into account a reasonable scale graphic. 2. Delay test points, i.e. numerical values of the results of the experiment on the coordinate grid. 3. Connection to research points of smooth lines so that it is possible, held as close to them. 4. Sharp curvature of the graph can be explained by measurement error in the study. In addition to graphic image, chart contains some auxiliary elements, shared header graphics, verbal explanation of symbols and individual elements of graphical image, the axis. The scale of the scale and numerical grid, numerical data that complement or refine the value marks on the chart indicators. More clearly than a line graph. The relationship between the factors represent the chart. The shape representation of dependency diagrams are columns, vertical and horizontal, and sector. Sector should use when seeking to emphasize parts of the whole. The degree of visibility diagrams greatly enhanced by their volume, the possibility of applying verbal explanations and various symbols. Detailed tabulation and graphical dependencies can be found with special editions. Ample opportunities to assist the researcher in preparing tables and graphical dependencies provide software for personal computers. Statistical methods for processing the results, soil know, and educational research. The socio-educational reality has 2 sides, qualitative and quantitative. Quality, a set of properties that show that a certain object is what it is. The number determines the size, amount of money. Quality has traditionally been through the description of symptoms and the number identified with the measure number. We must consider 2 main areas of quantitative methods in social and educational research for processing of research results and to formalize the processing conclusions. For the first objective, mainly used statistical methods to these other methods. A. Registration, identify specific objects belonging to a class, and count their numbers by affiliation, presence or absence of certain quality. Example of making an unsucceeding students in the classroom. 2. Ranking, placing the collected evidence, objects, events, etc. in a specific order, ascending or descending. Fixed parameters determine where in this series explored objects. Example, list of students depending on the number of missed their lessons. 3. Scaling, awarding points or other digital, conditional parameters investigated objects or their characteristics. This is achieved more certainty, more precisely defining the boundaries. Example, evaluation of students, Avramenko 4, Petrenko 2, Goncharenko 5, and so on. There are 4 main types of dimensional scales. 1. Scale items, or nomenon. 2. The scale of the order, or rank. 3. Interval scale. 4. The scale relations. Primary means of statistical processing of research results by means of statistical processing of results of research known mathematical techniques, formulas. Numerical calculations of means by which performance can be obtained generalized, bring in, revealing hidden patterns in them. These include statistical nature that exists between the variables under study. Some of mathematical and statistical analysis can calculate the so-called elementary mathematical statistics that characterize the selective distribution of information, such as sample mean, sample variance, mode, median, and others. Other means of mathematical statistics, such as analysis of variance, regression analysis, can determine the dynamics of individual sample statistics. With the third group of the correlation analysis, factor analysis, comparison of sample data, you can probably indicate statistical ties existing between the variables that are investigated. All means of mathematical and statistical analysis conventionally divided into primary and secondary. Called primary means by which performance can be obtained directly results. Secondary products called data processing, by which on the basis of raw data reveal hidden patterns in these statistics. By means of statistical processing of the primary attributes, such as the selected median size, sample variance, random fashion, and the sample median. Among the secondary products usually include correlation analysis, regression analysis, means of comparison of primary statistics in 2 or more samples. Consider the means of calculating the elementary mathematical statistics, starting with the sample mean. Sample mean as a statistical indicator is the average assessment of the quality of the study. This rating describes the degree of development of a whole group of subjects that pass the psychodiagnostic test. Comparing directly the average values of 2 or more elections, we can talk about the relative degree of development of the people. In psychodiagnostic, an experimental social studies teaches mean, not usually calculated with an accuracy greater than 1 decimal place, i.e., greater than 1/10 of a unit. Dispersion as a statistic describes how eigenvalues deviate from the mean value in this sample. The greater the dispersion, the more deviation of more data. Before you submit a formula to calculate the variance, consider an example. Scorist DA moves those raw data that were presented earlier and on which was calculated in the previous example. The average value, we see that they are all different and vary not only among themselves but also on the average. Measure their overall difference from the mean value and variance characterizing, determining it to be distinguished between a value with the same mean but different apex. Imagine another, different from the previous sample of initial values, such as the following: 5, 4, 5, 6, 5. 6, 5, 4, 5, 5. It is easy to verify that its mean value is also equal to 5.0. But in this sample of individual eigenvalues differ from the average considerably less than in the first sample. 2. Forms summarize the results of social and educational research. The research may be abstract, article, research report, thesis, monograph. The study authors it can also prepare for publication or training manual. Oral presentation of 3 oral statements. Scientists may speak at scientific meetings, seminars, conferences, symposia, etc. Usually the speech is limited, so the message, let alone report, should be concise, specific, clear, and most fully reflect the essence of the speech. To achieve this, performance should build in the following scheme: original position, showing that a scientific concept is the basis of scientific research. Brief summary is given of the investigated problem, explain the choice of research topic and its relevance. Hypothesis, objectives and purpose of the study. Methods, it is shown that the methods chosen to address specific objectives of the study. The main results of the study argued. We give a summary of the main quantitative results of the study, argues their authenticity as a brief interpretation and validity of these results. Conclusions and suggestions. The basic conclusions from the results of the study and put forward proposals to improve the research object. Theoretical and practical significance of research and its novelty. We showed that the new make research results in scientific field to which it belongs, which have practical value. These results are unknown science facts discovered during the investigation. Implementation of research results into practice. Statement of how the results of the study appear in publications that report made at meetings, seminars and conferences. Prospects for the study. Opportunities to further research in this paper. It should be emphasized that the oral statement must disclose only the basic idea of the study and in any case not to detail some of its provisions. To do this, the researcher must deeply understand the results obtained, find the most appropriate form of presentation, and deep arguments to justify them as factual material and logical reasoning. Central to the scientific statement to be his consistency in scientific reasoning. Unnecessary words, little-known terms only reduce the quality of the message or performance. Often presentations of scientific meetings published as abstracts and reports. The abstracts report usually does not exceed 1 to 2 printed pages of text. Therefore, abstracts should reflect only the main ideas. Speech. Summary constitutes one of the simplest forms of generalization of research results in writing. Lecture called short and concise description of major research. In the essay often reveals theoretical and practical importance issue, analysis of existing publications on the subject. It scores and draws conclusions on the analyzed research material. Abstract must display the erudition of its author's ability to independently analyze, organize and summarize current scientific information. Summary, the author made his scientific work, called the abstract, e.g., dissertation abstract. Science article. It is the most common form of printed materials. Researcher. Articles published in scientific journals, scientific or research and teaching collections. A paper typically reaches 10 to 12 pages of printed text. The article is complemented by illustrative material, tables, graphs, charts, pictures and more. In scientific articles teach basically the same components as in scientific reports. The content of the article should be systematic and coherent. Consistent scientific style, clarity of expression and presentation, compliance with the terms of their nature, strict adherence to scientific terminology, conciseness. Consistency of presentation position, consistency, interconnection regulations, expressive language. The author of article must be clear, precise and concise. Particular attention should be paid to the syntax and wording of the text. Quite mistakenly believe that only a complex vocabulary and frequent use of borrowed words provides scientific articles. For scientific style, orderly irrelevant statements, excessive detail underscores. Every sentence of scientific articles should be specific content, or as Livio far from scientific style. Of particular importance in the scientific article takes account of research findings and proposals. The final part of the article should be very clear, concise. Scientific highlights significant aspects of the survey results and reveal the ways of their implementation. In the scientific and methodological articles are the main methodological advice on any specific issue. The actual material derived based on a study in this paper is illustrative in nature. Research report. It is a document which contains comprehensive information about the study performed. Any research report must meet certain requirements, which include clarity of construction, building consistency of presentation, persuasive argument, brevity and precision of language, concrete evidence and presentation of research results, the validity of the proposed recommendations. Specific content of the report depends on science, which conducted the study, and the purpose and objectives of the study. But the generalized structure of a scientific report must include the following elements: title page, standard form, the list of performers of the research, abstract, content, bulk, presentation of research results, references and applications. If necessary, add a list of abbreviations, symbols and technical terms with their definitions. Summary of the report should reflect a summary of the report, volume, number and nature of illustrations and tables, a list of keywords, the essence of the work, research methods, brief conclusions and applicability of research results. The purpose of the abstract are brief and specific to convey the essence of the study. The bulk of the report include introduction, analytical review, underpinnings in research sections of the report, reflecting the method, content and results of the study. Their number is determined by the logic of the research. Ending, conclusions and proposals. The introduction briefly describing the state of the problem at the beginning of the study, purpose, novelty and relevance of the study, the feasibility of its implementation. The analytical review systematically and critically analyze the status issue, which is devoted to the study. These include only those data that are directly relevant to the subject of the record and, especially, new ideas and problems and possible approaches to solving these problems. Conflicting information obtained from different sources must be analyzed and evaluated with particular care. Sometimes the art reviewer make an independent report. Rationale for the research topic stems from an analytical view on which made reason in persuasive conclusions. Not to be confused rationale for the choice of research subject and rationale, the need of the study. After the last task is defined in the study, which dealt more in the introduction of the report. In sections of the report provides a detailed and consistent account of the contents of the study, presented the results obtained including the negative. In chapters include theoretical analysis of the literature, methods of research. According to experimental results reveal the purpose and nature of experiments, evaluate the accuracy and reliability of the obtained data, suggest the analysis of these data. Interpret and compare with theoretical data, rounding up these sections of the report, interpretation of the results of research and description of their possible applications. In the final part, the conclusions and suggestions include assessment results of the study in terms of their compliance, objectives of the study. There may also be considered ways and aim for future work, and noted scientific and practical value of research results in general. In the list of references includes all sources used, including Malloy-Tyragini departmental documents and reports. Bibliographic description of the sources used are in accordance with existing requirements, as it will go on. Applications can include a variety of additional materials, report, intermediate mathematics, Descriptions of equipment and devices that were used in the study. Examples of questionnaires, tests, manuals, tests, etc. developed for this study. Illustrative materials, auxiliary character. Place additional materials in the order they appear in the text of the main sections of content. Thesis, from the Latin, exploration, research is a qualifying scientific work. Done personally competitive degree and especially prepared the manuscript. She has made the author for public protection, scientifically based theoretical or experimental results. The scientific position, and is characterized by unity of content and shows contribution of students in science. Monograph. It is a solid, hard scientific work in which a study object, process or phenomenon considered very versatile and yet holistically and in-depth. Credit monograph may belong to one person or group of researchers. The book always reveals the state of the problem. An analysis of how it is decided at the beginning of the study. More essence of theoretical and practical ideas of the study provides summary of research methodology. Presents the results of experimental studies. The study thoroughly systematized and analyzed theoretically. On the basis of reasoned conclusions, made a reasoned practical advice from the implementation of the research results. At the end is a list of used literature sources. In the finished monograph is a scholarly book. 3. Rules for a list of references. List of references is a must scientific work. It is the key to the researcher use. The sources to some extent reflects the scientific ethics and culture of scientific work. The substance list gives an idea of how deeply the author was able to examine the status of the problem, how deep it has subject of study. Due to included in the list of scientific work of literature, it's possible to reduce some of the quoted material and presentation of certain provisions in the body of scientific work. The list of literature published in scientific work, including used, quoted and/or recommended references. Recommended sources include mainly for educational and learning issues. Place lists literature in the late edition, except for scientific collections of articles, some directories and guides. Building a list of references can be different. In scientific studies, the most common are the following options: alphabetical, chronological, in sequence, the first mention of work, and systematic. References to scientific work indicates the amount used by the author, sources, the level of the investigated problem, and skills to literature. This list, one of the essential parts of scientific work that reflects the independent creative work of its author and demonstrates the degree of fundamentality of the study. List of used literature sources are placed after the main text of scholarly works. Its volume does not exceed 5% of the total manuscript. Information about each literary source record in accordance with existing rules. Bibliographic descriptions of printed works. In Ukraine, remain to be valid rules for bibliographic description of publications set the standard 7.1 to 84, bibliographical description of the document. General requirements and regulations to Stavlania, rules for bibliographic description of publications are required for all who need arises. Make lists of references. Consists of bibliographic description of each source language in which it issued. Bibliographic description of the printed work is a collection of information about it, as well as its part or group of works, enabling identification of the work, to get an idea of its contents. Reading purpose, scope and even some of the data. Bibliographic descriptions consist of certain elements, which are divided into mandatory and optional, i.e., applying to further reveal the peculiarities of publication. The sequence of recording all items clearly defined and cannot be arbitrarily changed. Depending on the element of bibliographic description, it can be short, contain only the mandatory elements, advanced, include both mandatory and some optional elements. Full, consist of compulsory and optional elements of all. includes information about the author or authors, title of publication, its nature and purpose, information about author, information about the recurrence edition, place of publication, city, publisher or institution that made the publication, year of publication, number of pages and some others that we will not consider because they go beyond this discipline. Information about the author or authors include his name in the nominative case and initials. VP Savchenko, if necessary, specify additional information about the author, father, son, specialty, etc. Name of publication indicated on this form and consistency, as well as on its front page. Reduce words in the title is not allowed. In additional elements of bibliographic description, use standardized abbreviations. They will be shown in specific examples of bibliographic descriptions below. In each edition of the bibliographic elements, descriptions specified and have some specific features. Bibliographic description of the book. The author includes the name of the author of the book, details that clarify the meaning, purpose and recurrence, edition, place of publication, publication year and number of pages in the book. Bibliographic description of the book, 4 or more authors. If the authors of the book 4, the show names first and only 3 with the addition of words and others. But usually when the authors in book 4 or more, the names are not indicated on the front page edition. On them you can learn from the reverse side of title page or introduction to the book. Therefore, information about authors at this time point after the title, such elements as mentioned above, called the information about authorship as opposed to information about the author or authors who point to the name of the book, separate the oblique. In the collective editions, assume that in addition to the authors participated in the creation of books available to other persons who exercise its editing, translation and more. Information on this point and after a full or abbreviated list of names of authors and separating them with semicolons. Bibliographic description of an individual is a multi-publication, may be made in 2 versions. After the first description of them, separate so it can consist of general information on all publications, thus information on a separate volume. Vygotsky S. Sobrini Writings, in 6 volumes. Ch. Yet, Davies Zaporizhzhia, Moscow, Pedagogy, 1982 to 1984. So-called Problems of Development of Mentality, ed. A.M. Matyushkina, 1983. 367p. Publication 1, to the public through the press, radio, television or internet. 2. The inclusion in editions of the work. And 3. The text printed in any publication. Publications serve several functions. 1. Publish the results of scientific research. 2. Promote the priority of the author, date of signing of the publication to print, a priority date of the scientist. In the historiography of the dissertation, an abstract must indicate when he first turned to the development of scientific problems. 3. Indicate the investigator's personal contribution to the development of scientific problems, especially important with individual publications. Works in collaboration require additional clarification. The text of the dissertation and abstract applicants shall submit a link to their own publications to include them in the list of sources used. 4. Serve to verify the accuracy of the main results and conclusions of the thesis. Novelty and scientific level it, since after the release of the publication becomes the object of study and evaluation of a broad scientific community. 5. Confirm the fact of testing and implementation of results and conclusions of the thesis. 6. Reflect the essence of the thesis, as indicated in the introduction to the dissertation and abstract, as well as the inclusion of publications applicant to the list of published works on the thesis. 7. The novelty and high level of scientific papers, which publish the results of the thesis, is one of the main completion of a fixed phase of the study or work in general. 9. Provide the primary scientific information society. Notify the scientific community about the emergence of new scientific knowledge. 10. Convey the individual result in the public domain, and so on. Of particular importance are scientific publications that were published in the form of publications. ISO 3017-95 defines publication as a document that was editing and publishing, study made printing, embossing or otherwise, contains information intended for dissemination, and meets state standards and other regulations on publishing design and printing performance. Science is publishing the results of theoretical and/or experimental studies, as well as trained scientists for publication of cultural artifacts, historical documents, and historical texts. It is designed for professionals and research. Among the scientific publications, distinguish two groups. 1. Research. 2. Sources. The first group of scientific publications include monograph, research and book publication of a full research problem or topic that belongs to one or more authors, abstract, thesis, scientific publication as a brochure, essay, or through the study, which is given for the degree. Preprint, scientific publications with preliminary materials, which are published in the publication of the edition in which they must be contained. Abstracts and materials, conference, collection, a periodic at the conference, reports, results and decisions, scientific papers, proceedings of the studies carried out in research institutions, universities and scientific societies. The second group of sources of scientific publications are publications. Documentary or scientific publication containing monuments and historical documents that were textological processing, with notes, introductory articles, support boards and other elements of scientific publications help system. In terms of isolated two types of non-periodical publications of scientific book publishing with over 48 pages, and pamphlet book edition volume of 4 to 48 pages. Status of scientific publication requires strict adherence to publishing design publication. To specify a key masthead, a set of data describing the issue and intended for its design, bibliographic processing, statistical records, and inform the reader. The element of the initial information is information about the authors or others who participated in the creation of publication, title, name, edition, Nadahalovni data, Pidahalovni data, numbers, output, storage code edition, code UDC, BBK index, author mark, design annotated, a catalog card, assignment protection of copyright, international standard number ISBN, final data. Baseline data include location, registration, publication name, publisher or organization that owns the right of publication, and here in the bottom of the cover sheet. In the final data indicate the date of the original in preparation, date of the publication to print, paper size and proportion worksheet, type and number of the paper, the font of the text, printing. Publication volume in conventional printing sheets that are given to the format of the paper sheet 60 times 90 centimeters, the volume of publication in accounting and publishing worksheets. Order number, printing company, the name and complete mailing address of publisher and printing company. Final data are placed on the last page of the publication or the back cover sheet. Thank you for attention.